right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I know you guys are coming in still, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with some announcements. So good morning. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. This is BPM RIA, Broward, Palm Beach, Miami Real Estate Investors Association, your only local approved chapter here in South Florida that's partnered with the National Real Estate Investors Association. We have an awesome webinar today. We have Kurt Richardson in the virtual building, CEO of Encore Athletics. He'll go ahead and introduce himself in just a moment, but just some quick announcements for you guys. We do have our monthly meeting tomorrow. So go ahead and pop the link in the chat right now. If you haven't registered for a monthly meeting on Zoom tomorrow at 7 p.m., please go and register. We have a new speaker coming in that hasn't spoke at our group before, but Anish, he's said very great things about them, and I'm really excited to have them come in because it's a nice new flavor in here. So come on back next week for our Unbridled Wealth webinar. Get into some wealth building here at BPM RIA. Excited to have them back again. And then Anish is teaching an awesome webinar, 20 ways to invest in real estate. New content, new energy, really looking forward to that. And just a little sneak peek for anyone who hasn't checked out the website. Anish is following up this webinar with an in-person workshop for anyone in Miami. I know you guys have been asking for this so much.
It's especially for those South Miami people. They're like, you guys
Miami.
Never come down here. You hate us, all that stuff. I heard you guys. So I'm going to take a trek. I got my passport from Broward County. I'm going to make it all the way down to South Miami. Exactly. We might have some empanadas. I might have to, bring some Cuban desserts. Who knows?
Yep, you never know what's going to happen with the niche, but that's what keeps it exciting. But please go check out the website, link in the chat. Go ahead and register for that workshop he's doing, following up his webinar on the 10th next week. And just keep up with us. We have a tax planning strategy webinar coming up the following week. And then another incredible webinar coming up from the Jackie Jackson, TEDx speaker, all these amazing things she's done. Excited to have her come speak first time with BPM RIA, and she's going to get into tax deeds and liens and all that good stuff. So go to the website right now, or even better, go and text, opt in our text updates. It's super easy. Text the word BPM REIA, all one word, no spaces, to our event line, 954-800-69661. Do not call this line. This is just a text update line. So go ahead and opt in for those text updates. And it's super convenient. You get the registration link, all that good stuff right in the text for you. All right, and one of my favorite topics, Quick Start Bootcamp. Our next Quick Start Bootcamp is scheduled for August 5th, August 6th. This is a 2 full-day training on Zoom led by Anish, 4 incredible guest speakers. You get a booklet to keep for life. I went in through the link in the chat for you guys, so you can go ahead and look at all the different topics we cover. We're going to talk about wholesaling, flipping, rehabbing, all the good stuff. And like I said, 4 awesome speakers in there. This is a money back guarantee. We have member and non-member pricing here. So looking forward to seeing you guys at the next one. It looks like most of you in here have already attended, so that is even more amazing. Anyone who has questions, thank you so much for responding to the poll on your screen. I really appreciate it. The polls really do help me understand where I need to put more attention and everything like that. So thank you guys for responding to the poll. I really do appreciate it. And members, you get all the goodies. You get the National RIA benefit package they're being approved by the National RIA, which includes huge discounts to Home Depot, huge discounts to Home Depot. I cannot stress this enough. Anyone who's a current member right now and you do not have your Home Depot account set up, I highly recommend you go in there because you get the best discounts for Home Depot. Other discounts to Avis, Budget, Rent Perfect, so many incredible vendors, Equity Trust, the list goes on. You get member pricing, you're in free for the networking meetings that are quarterly, your guests come in at half off, and a ton of awesome things. So thank you guys for responding to the poll. Most of you guys are members too. This makes me happy. That's really awesome, guys. Thank you. So one-on-one coaching and mentoring at BPM RIA. Some of you may know that we do offer a truly one-on-one coaching program, but some of you might not. If you do have any questions, I invite you to our website to schedule a discovery call with me where we can talk about what's included in our one-on-one coaching program. We do put up 100% of the money for our students' deals and split the profit 50-50. We have a very unique program here at BPM RIA. Would love to get the brochure with all the breakdown of everything that's included in your hands, as well as pricing, so you can have a 1-hour consultation with a mentor to discuss all these details and see if this program is a good fit for you in your career in real estate investing. So this is my direct line down here, but I highly recommend you go and book the discovery call, because that will guarantee a time for both me and for you to get down to it and answer some questions, as well as help you schedule this 1-hour consultation with a mentor. So thank you guys so much. I will go ahead and put some other awesome links in the chat for you guys, just to help get you all connected, and all questions. We do not want to miss your questions. So if you could please put your questions over in the Q&A box down in your Zoom menu. But I will be putting some awesome things in the chat for you guys, and feel free to, respond and engage in the chat as well. But if you do have questions for our speakers, please put those in the chat. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Alexa. So in case you guys don't know, I see a lot of familiar faces. My name's Anish Dave, CEO of BPM RIA. And if you already know me, that's great. But the guy that you really want to know today is this man, Kurt Richardson. So before I let him introduce himself a little bit, some of you guys know I've been working with Miami Dolphins Business Combine, PAC, the professional athletic community, to work with these NFL players that are really trying to do some great things on and off the football fields. And you guys always hear me talk about how much I learn at these events too. And so I was fortunate enough to actually sit in and meet Kurt I got to sit in on his presentation first. And holy crap, was this guy friggin' knocking it out of the park is an understatement. I mean, after I watched his event or during his presentation, I was ready to run down the streets, run through a wall and just be like, damn, I need to network. And so lucky for me is that working with Kurt, just even during his presentation, and I actually got some alone time with the guy. And this guy is a networking machine, is an understatement. So how many of you guys realize, go ahead and put in the chat, that if you learn how to network, you're going to make some more money? Give me a yeah, buddy, or give me a yeah, Kurt. Go ahead and put in the chat, man, if you believe that, right? Because this whole business, right? I've been teaching how to real estate invest, wholesale, how to find deals. But if you do not know how to network, I can't even begin to tell you how much money you're leaving on the table. This whole business is about network. I don't care if you're in real estate investing, you're, selling Amway. I don't care if you're selling real estate as a realtor, cars, you name it, you got to learn how to network. And that's why we tell you to come to our meetings, our in-person meetings, because you have to network. Yeah, listen, I got Esther saying, I got a yeah, Kurt from Esther, Justin. Justin's got my yeah, buddy. The other Esther, Valador, yeah, Kurt. So I am going to let Kurt introduce himself first before we start really talking about, I mean, sometimes I want to call Kurt, I might call you the network master. I don't know. We're going to have to come out with some special name that.
There is a name. There is a name.
Let me hear it.
Guys, yeah. So first off, let's start with here. Man, Alexa, that was an incredible intro. You're like moving and shaking. This is like, I feel like I'm on Good Morning America. Let's go. All right. Of course, Anish has the best assistant in production. Of course, it makes sense. moving and shaking. Secondarily, I appreciate you having me on because we're not going to get into it on here, but you've pushed me in life, which I'm a stubborn guy. I'm stubborn, and I was pushed, and I'm being pushed, and I'm happy to be in your orbit, man. I really mean that. Secondarily, as to me, my name is Kurt Richardson. A long time ago, I got given like a moniker called Mr. Access, which is I talk to all the players about what they have is access. And I grew up in the projects. I grew up thinking that my life was hard because I didn't have Jordans, but my life was hard because I didn't know anybody that could get me out of that situation. I didn't have access to anybody that knew any other way out other than sports. And so I was lucky to be a young and fast meathead. Now I'm an old and fat guy, but I was a really good athlete, state champion wrestler, decent football player, and I got to play football at Michigan State in the 90s for Coach Saban before he became Coach Saban. And then because I was a naughty kid, I found my way over to Ferris State. And because I was a naughty kid there too, I found my way to wrestling in Muskegon Community College. And that particular guy really changed my life, which is he had a really heart-to-heart talk with me. He called it a carefrontation. And he let me know that, hey, pretty soon no one's going to help you. For guys like you that come from where you come from, we're not selling ribbons if you don't make it. We're not doing fundraisers. Like when you hit 21, you just won't have made it. And a couple of weeks later, I turned 21, and it was an experience for me because I realized, Anish has talked about the PAC, the pro athlete community that was founded by someone who's essentially like my little brother. His older brother was my best friend growing up. I've known him since he was in first grade. So to see him go from that to someone in the Miami Dolphins front office has been quite the experience. But his dad would buy me a coat. They would pay for my lunch. I was raised by a community of people, and I didn't earn that. I was lucky to be taken in. And for the first time ever in my life, I was scared. I was a knucklehead. I enjoy confrontation, wrestler, played fullback, did not have a lot of fear in my life, grew up in the worst place you could grow up here in our area in Michigan. But when I realized everything I had came from somebody else, I really had an emotional experience. I was terrified. Like, oh, I don't have any skill. The only skill I have is that people are nice to me. Like my coat, even my car, somebody found out I was taking it's called the Michigan Flyer. I was taking like this public transportation from East Lansing up to Ferris State, which is in a small town way up north, like 3 hours away round trip, 4 on a bus. And someone felt bad and gave me like a hand-me-down car. Everything I had in my life, people had given me. And that guy taught me a little bit about access and how to hey, if you become this person though, what a story you'll tell. What a story you'll be able to tell if you can figure this out. And he taught me a lot of stuff. And one of the things he taught me was networking. And as you heard, Anish, one day after a couple Miller Lights out of Michigan State tailgate, somebody was talking and they're like, oh my gosh, this guy over here is going to be a billionaire. And that ricocheted in my head for about 30 minutes and about 2 more soda pops. And I went over and shook that person's hand and explained to them that I have no idea what they do, but I'm a person who needs an at-bat, and I would do anything to get that at-bat and serve in any way possible, and changed my life, changed my kid's life, and here we are. Got to meet Anish because of it. Full circle Lion King stuff. So in the process of that, in 2010, we'll talk about here in a little bit, an NFL player came to our office and wanted to meet Mr. Gilbert, and they sent me down to talk to him because he's just a giant person and not a lot of people want to deal with him.
Yeah,
his arm went in the elevator.
Kurt, I just wanted to, the people that don't know who Mr. Gilbert is, you want to tell?
Sorry. Dan Gilbert. He started a mortgage company that you would know as Rocket Mortgage. It used to be called Quicken Loans. When I started in 2003, there was 220 people. When I left as a kind of entry-level executive in 2014, we had 23,000 people and had become the number one lender. We were the number one online lender for a long time, and then they were the number one lender for a while. Now it goes back and forth with my buddy Matt Ishbia, who played college sports with me, who owns United Wholesale Mortgage. So, and I believe those guys are enemies now, but that's not for me to determine. But yeah, Mr. Gilbert is Dan Gilbert. And so a football player came to meet Dan Gilbert. And when I asked why in the heck would he do that, he had just got drafted. And in my mind, that's it. I realized that no one goes to the NFL, they go through the NFL. And I knew, I could communicate that to people. And so since then, I work with 11 NFL teams, work with about 300 players on how to take young guys with opportunity and make sure they become old guys with opportunity.
Absolutely. And so kind of interesting what you just said is that, from the car, they hand me downs, and people are always giving things. And I could tell you there's a lot of people that weren't given things. So my point is, there must have been something that you've always seen, because and the limited time I do know you, you're always open to listening and asking the right questions. I've seen you work a room, and I'm not even going to call it working a room. It's just being who you are. And it's very authentic, because you'll follow up. You'll ask a question and you always have a follow-up question that pertains to it, which means that you listen.
Yeah.
And
I think
that
honestly,
always,
that's the skill. I mean, you know that. The questions, the answers are there. They're in stone. It's the questions that change at time in our life and being able to ask them. And so what's funny about this is intro, and we haven't pre-discussed this, but I tell people that there's two superpowers. One is networking, and one is what I call modern literacy, which is the ability to learn, unlearn, and then relearn, because the world's going to change so many more times. What's true today on May 2nd in 2023 might not be true next year. But there will be people that live their whole lives as if everything we know right now is true. Here's the way you make money. Here's the way you do real estate. Here's the way you raise kids. That will change. And the people that can't unlearn and relearn, they're the new illiterate. Like the way literacy was 100 years ago, if you couldn't read, you couldn't succeed in society. I believe the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn is that, and it only can be done with questions. That's an interesting thing that you picked up on, because I hadn't talked to you about. That's a superpower to me, to be able to ask questions and allow yourself to unlearn something and relearn something. So I even was thinking that when she was showing the courses you've had and people have gone to someone, this ain't me pitching on your behalf, you don't need me, but a lot of, like, I'm a book reader now. I can't tell you how many times I've reread Think and Grow Rich. It's not something I just checked off and move on for the rest of my life, because all these experiences have stacked up on me. And so I need to unlearn and relearn. And one of the ways to do that is go back through what started your trajectory in a way, re-get information and see what could you do with that now. Because I'll tell you this, even our relationship off this and what we're working on behind the scenes and what you're pushing me to do, if I learned that 5 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered. Because I had to learn some things, and now I'm unlearning some things. And when I'm relearning, it's like, oh, here's the rocket ship now. And that will change at some point too, and so it's interesting. Questions.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm going to add the third superpower that you didn't, that I want to add on, because you were talking about, prior to us coming on, he was talking about his wife and his twin daughters. And so the third superpower to be, I don't know, how long you've been married?
7 years next month.
Okay, good. It's a good thing that you knew the number, right? So that's good. That's a good thing to know. Absolutely. So one of the things is I've been married 11 plus years. So I always say the third superpower is always listen to your wife.
I love that. I love that. That's good.
You want to be happily married. That's the third superpower, is to make sure you listen to your wife and act.
Yeah. And to that point, when I told my wife about meeting you, she was like, don't, because I've met a lot of influential people who have been willing to help. Again, that's why I give back in the other ways that I do, is because so much of this was given to me. I would have to be a real jerk to not give back to other people. And so she's seen the people that have tried to help, and I'm always respectful of their time. Like, oh, I believe what you're telling me is true, but it's not right for me right now, which is a flaw I have. It's a flaw I have, because people like you and others that I get lucky enough to go in rooms with would know better sometimes. And I'm trying to, it's not a humility thing, it's a coachability thing, but not in the way I'm coachable in a million ways, but in one way, I almost don't want to waste people's time. And so I'm so respectful of time, because that's what I want from others. And my wife is like, no, this time, I told you, she knows your name. She's like, you're gonna do these courses, Kurt.
Absolutely. And so go ahead and put in the chat, how many of you guys have felt like that? That, hey, I've been in a spot, I'm not, I'm not in the right room, or I have nothing to offer, right? So I'm going to raise my hand. I can't tell how many times I've gone into a place and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I've been intimidated. And, one of the things that I've learned, right? That's okay. That's normal. You're not that special. I kind of joke about that, because we all go through that. What happens next is, right? Meaning you never want to feel bad or say, if I only did this. And what I found is that, like when people really want to try to get in real estate and they ask me those questions and they want us, I want to even give them more, because they're asking the right questions. And then I want to give them the house when they actually start acting on those, on the things that you tell them as being coachable. So as you were talking about as your journey after Obviously you didn't make it, you did not make it in the NFL per
Did
se.
not, was not good enough. No.
Not good enough, but you are in the NFL because you probably know more NFL players than most people out there.
Yeah, I keep track of one weird thing. I'm not vain in many ways, but I've watched 31 NFL games from the sideline. So
Wow.
that's like a career. That's like
which is
and
amazing.
Again, you can't see it. I've cashed a bunch of checks from teams, 11 teams.
Yeah. So that's the crazy part is, so as let's talk about as you went through college and you got, you got the hand-me-down car, and when you were in coaching and you realized that you weren't going to the next level. So you graduated. I didn't even ask you what you got your degree in.
Yep. My first degree was in kinesiology. I wanted to be a gym teacher. Like for me, I grew up in a place called Cranbrook Housing Projects in Lansing, Michigan. Lansing's the capital of.
By the way, you don't look like a gymnast.
No, gym teacher, like dodgeball.
Okay, all right, I'm just checking.
But it's funny, my twins are. So in front of me is a full pink Fisher-Price rings, high bar, Minnie Mouse mat. That's their jam, gymnastics. For me, I've always I've been into the thing that's been most consistent in my life, regardless of the physical shape I'm in, is strength. I just was always enamored with the fact that you could push on a piece of you could push on a rock, a stone, a weight, a barbell, and your body would change. And not just in muscles, but strength, strength is a wild phenomenon. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with you, but that central nervous system, it's your ability to respond to stress. Biological, evolutionary, it goes back 210,000 years. That was just interesting to me. It's almost like magic. Oh, if I do 15 push-ups, my body will freak out and say, I got to get ready. I better be strong enough to do 16 next time because this guy's a psycho and he went from 10 to 15 and he might go to 20. And so you don't even need muscle mass, but your brain is creating this CNS response that gets you stronger. I've just been obsessed with what strength means. And to many people, they associate strength and muscle or fitness. For me, it's more magical than that. To me, it's like that our little brain in here that's 200,000 years old can just respond and give you more than what you had. And that's the same. And it sounds esoteric, but that's networking.
Yeah.
I live by, there's I forget who it is. He has the book, 10,000 Hours, Malcolm Gladwell, right? He's smarter than me, social scientist and all this way. I don't know if 10,000 hours is true, but one thing I found is absolutely true is zeros. I talk a lot about that. The first time you do something, good, bad, or indifferent, when you add your first zero, so the 10th try, 1, there's no zeros, 10, there's 1 0. The 10th try, you'll be all right at. If you could do it 90 more times and get to your second zero, 100, 1 and 2 zeros, you'll be all right. If you could get to 1,000, oh my God, 10,000. So I don't know about hours, but I know about reps. As you heard me talk to the players about, the number one thing we should transition as athletes is that reps work and nothing else does. Not my course, not your course, not a book, not anything. You can't read, Jimmy Butler can't read how to hit free throws. He's got to go out there and shoot them. And then he's got to shoot them under clutch situations and clutch pressures and all of that stuff. Reps work and nothing else does. And so what I think is great about networking or any of that is as you add these zeros, it's the same thing as strength. Kinesiology, I never spent a day as a teacher, as a gym teacher, but I draw on that all the time. When I'm uncomfortable or fearful, or even when we were trying to catch up, one of the things I told you is I have a personal philosophy after the third email I called you out of the blue. All of that used to be uncomfortable because I know people are now it's for me, it's no, just do the rep because I know I'll feel better later. And that's all the quitting happens in those first 8 or 9 reps. Most people don't get to even 10 tries, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Almost no one gets to 100 tries.
I agree with you. So I know a lot of, our viewers and, they're real estate investors. You know how many times I heard, students or beginning investors, hey, I tried this 1 time or 2 times, right? So I always joke about it as, people ask me, luckily I've been able to build a nice real estate investing career. People ask me, how many sellers or homeowners have you talked to or knocked on doors? And I kind of joke about it as I have no idea. Yeah. Meaning I've done a ton, right? So you're not going to believe this, Kurt. So this is a story when I was younger, but it reminds me when I was single of my dating history. I asked out a lot of girls and, I got a bunch of no's, but I did remember the one that said yes, right? So that's the whole way I look at real estate investing. You're talking whatever business you're in. you never, you're going to get a lot of no's. And so what, right? It's the yes. And so when we knock on doors and some of these wholesale deals, we made $25,000, $30,000. So I always say, hey, look, that's that knock on a door, that pickup on the phone, picking up that call is a $30,000 conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so my intention changes quickly on that portion. How do you obviously when you're going 1 to 5 or 10, or I'm just going to use the rejection end of it, right?
Sure.
And we're talking about reps. How do you deal with that, or from all the coaching that you've done and mentoring these players, or what do you tell them to do?
It's I call it no and now. Like we're all chasing W's, like we want to win. It's that. All right, Anish said no, now I do this. All you can do is control that. It's the same thing I told the guys. You might remember I show a picture of Dave Chappelle in my presentation, and I was there in Detroit, Michigan when Dave Chappelle bombed, legendary bomb. Some people think it was one of the worst nights in the history of comedy, but at the end of it, he got off the stage viewing his physical safety. Detroit's a rough place. He's in danger, but he came back out to say, and just so you know, you're not getting your money back. I get paid for the attempt, and threw the mic down and walked off. And so I'm one of those people that felt ripped off by that, because I, by the way, never got my money back. He just left the show. But that really connected with me, which is, you talked about changing your intention. When you're networking, when you're trying, I could do a whole thing on trying. We'll come back to that. But you just got to trick your mind in that you get paid for the attempt. When I was selling mortgages at Quicken Loans in 2003, when the internet was very young, and you're calling Mrs. Smith in Kansas City, Kansas, and she's never even heard of Rocket Mortgage, and I got to get her social security number over the phone to get her to pull a credit app so I can potentially lend to her. And back then she's going to use her bank anyways. I can't control 99% of that scenario, except saying, Anish, go ahead with your social security number. And he's going to tell me no more times than not. And I just move on. But intention matters. Everyone won't do that. And so that's how I made a great living as a mortgage banker. We were making so much money because I didn't have a house, right? I grew up in Section 8 housing. We didn't pay. You don't even pay money. Like, I think our rent was legitimately under $10 a month, and we would get kicked out sometimes. But you can't even process. Like, for me, all these people would quit, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, is what we're doing illegal then? Like, why can people not sell over the phone? Like, what do you care what Mrs. Smith thinks or what? And then I really realized it's not quite a superpower, but it's a paradigm shift that most people can't make, that control that your piece of it. There are millions of no's out there, and you might bump into 100,000 in a row, but your goal is to just try to get to a yes. And people can't focus their mind on that piece of it. And that's why they quit. And it goes back to this thing on trying. You know what we tell young kids about trying? We tell them it doesn't hurt to try. And that's freaking BS, because it hurts a lot to try. And what we should teach young people and young professionals is that it hurts to try and you should do it anyways. Because what the reason you can't even count the amount of people you talk to is there's you're standing on all those no's. You built something that we're all logged into today standing on no's. The yeses papered you up.
Yeah.
You're living right, but you're standing on the no's. And that's the thing that happens in life, is that people, we lose perspective of what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get a yes. And the only way to get yeses is no's. And that's the deal. You got to shake hands with that.
Yep. And you know what's funny? I like the no for, and it goes no for now.
Just add get the W. No, now. Yeah. I got told no, so now I'm going to do this. But you got to pre-tell yourself that. You got to shake hands with that early on. What happens is we're all going to be low when we get the no. I don't care what happens, how many times I have a deal from time to time that we thought was money in the bank and it wasn't, and that'll do something to us. You got to pre-decide that, all right, this is when I'm living my truth. I said no, this is what I'm going to live in.
You know what's funny? I use no for now, meaning hey, Kurt said no. Hey, will you come on the webinar? He said no, but no for now. Like, meaning,
well, you told me a story about purchasing something where you out loud said, I'm not going to buy any of this stuff. And then stroked it pretty
exactly. And I still bought.
Yeah. So we have that perspective, and it's just about, I'll go back to the mortgage world because I don't know your world that much.
Yeah.
By 2009, by 2009, I would still get fight or flight every now and then, but literally I was a machine. Like, I could make 100 calls and take 100 no's, and it would do nothing to my heart rate or day. Because I just had stood on enough no's that the yeses are going to come. Do people still need to buy houses? Yes. Do people still not have the money to buy a house? Yes. Do I have all the money in the bank? Yes. All right, just dial the phone again, Kurt.
Yeah.
And then I became a leader and was able to translate that, and then a leader of leaders. And that's when it gets really tricky because, you know, every time there's a baton pass. But it taught me a lot because it's a different skill every level.
I'm going to add so my background was mortgages back in the day too. So
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
too. So yeah, so I worked at a bank and then I had my own mortgage company. So I'm right there with you when it comes to that. What about, because I get this from a lot of students and newbie investors, right? Or you could say in general, you know, Anish, I just don't feel comfortable that I don't know all the information, right? So they're using it like what I tell people, you're using this as a roadblock. Guess what, Kurt? You're not going to know everything. You okay with that? Yep. Meaning, have you seen like the challenges and what I tell our students or even our RIA? Hey, listen, we have a team. Like, I'm not an insurance expert. I do not want to be one. I don't want to be a title insurance, title expert. Hell no. Do I want to know everything about probates? Absolutely not. but I literally have a team because of the RIA. We have a full team of other professionals that are great what they do. But a lot of newbies or even experienced people, their challenge becomes that I'm afraid they're going to ask me something that I don't know. Have you ever been in that situation, or how do you challenge,
For sure. That's one of these, what I call like these mental Chinese handcuffs. When I was a kid, you'd put your finger in these traps, and if you pulled out, like the more resistance you added to it, the tighter it got. And the only way out was just to give up the ghost and put your fingers together. Does that crazy? Do you know what those were back in the day?
Yeah. I'm older.
There's a million of those scenarios that you're talking about right now that if you choose to focus on those, they'll trap you in them. What you really got to, and it comes from a place of good intention, honestly, which is people don't want to make a mistake. One of the things that's great about, and this goes back to a Mr. Gilbert thing, his whole company is built on culture and isms, and most people can't even explain what an organizational culture is, but he had 17 axioms that were so easy to understand. And one of them was building anything great is messy. And the permission to make mistakes was pervasive in the organization. Now, you can't steal, you can't do anything with integrity, but if somebody hits you with a question and you don't know the answer or you give the wrong answer, that's not the end of the world. But also what it does is it relieves you of the pressure to not know. I talked to you and the guys about this. I was in boardrooms with Mr. Gilbert's network is crazy, as you can imagine. And like, we had Mark Cuban to the office, we had all these people, and people would use a word, like the acronym, so COE all the time would come up. And I was like, what is that? And I asked, and literally the whole room was like, close of escrow. And I'm like, oh, everyone knew it, but I didn't. But I didn't get embarrassed by that. I felt myself as being part of the group now. Like, oh, now I'm part of the group that everybody knows. It's all in it's all intentionality again. Give yourself permission to not know. That's a handshake thing. That's a deal you got to make. Hey, the reason I joined BPM ARIA is because I don't know everything. Like, release yourself from the pressure to know everything. And then tell people, you know what? No one's ever asked me that question before. That's a really good question. That's salesmanship right there. It's like when you get blindsided, you're like, wow, believe it or not, no one's ever asked me that question. I think that's a good question. Yeah. Luckily for you, I'm partnered with, that's how I would handle it. But it all goes back to giving yourself permission. We had to tell our girls last night that we got to put our dog down. I read on the internet for days and days and days of what to say. And when I started to talk to them, my wife had to book out of the room. It's her dog. And I messed the whole thing up. But I've never had to do that before. I don't hold myself to this crazy standard on that. And it went bad. But it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to learn from that. I give myself permission to have bad results with good intentions. It's okay to try 100 times and not get it. I'm investing some money in the thing we're talking about behind the scenes to try to make something happen. If that fails, I know I'm gonna learn something about myself and the way to do it. That'll be all right. I give myself permission to not know. I give myself permission to be blindsided, to be uncomfortable. I don't have this expectation of myself that I'm supposed to know everything.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead and put in the chat if you guys are getting some good. Give me a Kurt, to show him some love about the good information that he's relaying to you guys. On the process of what it feels like. Look at that. You got a bunch of super fans already out after you. So it's an understatement. So when you went how did you go from working at Quicken Loans, right? I like that you call him still Mr. Gilbert. I guess, when you make your $1 billion, you could probably call him Dan.
Yeah, well, it's ironic. I only do this because I don't know who's going to see this. To him,
Okay.
I used to say Dan. Actually, we all
Oh,
in our group we call him Uncle Dan, but that's too familiar. But yesterday on a phone call, somebody was like, "Why do you say Mr. Ross but Uncle Dan?" And it's like, I know Mr. Ross loosely through Caleb, so it's interesting. That's a whole nother phenomenon. But yeah, I would be calling him Uncle Dan in our group of friends.
oh, there you go.
Like,
Okay,
we
I
would
was
say,
just
like,
checking. I was
you
like,
spend your whole life
fancy
trying to get a rich uncle. And the reason for that is, in the time I was there, he funded so many businesses, people that brought him at bats. Like, I was there when StockX, which is a $1 billion company, the shoe company, I was there when Josh got to pitch that. And it's
Wow.
like literally sounded like the most ridiculous thing of all time. Yeah, we're going to build a stock market for shoes and luxury goods so people know what it should cost in real time based on demand. And I told you and the guys, like, I sat in a lot of pitches. That one was like, get out of here. What a bozo. Wrap this up. And when people were asking him questions, it was one of those moments like, oh, the room knows something I don't know. That there was an appetite for that. And by the way, right. Also, flip side, I was around when they bought this company called Zico, which was these rainforest climate trading cards, when they thought kids would like that the way that like Pokemon, bomb, like multi-million-dollar loss. And I was in the room and I thought that was a good idea. And so did they. So I've been on both sides of it. And what you learn is, it goes back to what word? TRY.
Yeah.
You know, the reason he's more stuff is bombed for him and Mr. Ross that they tried than went right. But when they win, they hit a lot of grand slams.
Absolutely. And I know obviously, you've been there working for a while, and I know during the pack you were talking about Dominic Sue. Do you want to kind of tell like that? That's a
so that's the person I was talking about. So when he got drafted to the Detroit Lions, he comes up to my office was on 9 Monroe, which is a building where Dan's was, and he just showed up unannounced, kind of wanted to meet with him. Which is funny because Sue was at the event we were at that day. He wasn't in my session, but I've had him in my session like 4 or 5 times. I have the picture of, he had ultimately ended up having a badge where he could come and go at Quicken Loans as much as he wanted, like any of us. But ended up having a joint mentor. His name is Patrick McInnes. He was the president of he was the president of Quicken Loans at the time. And inside of that, I asked Patrick, why would Sue want to do this? Like, why does he want to meet with Dan? And he's like, football is so short. And I was like, yeah, but he's going to make a lot of money, because again, I'm coming from a scarce background. He's like, Kurt, the best guys want to be number one in the world at something. And inside of that, then literally it hit me like, there was a deal, a StockX deal, where they let Josh Gordon put in $25,000 on StockX. Now I remember thinking, and I'm sure someone would shun me if this ever got to that group of people, like, what a bunch of jackasses. Why wouldn't I got 25 grand? Why wouldn't you ask me? And somebody was like, Kurt, you're not him. Like, you don't have that profile. They don't need the money. Dan doesn't need 25 grand. He needs, and I had never considered that. Because why? What'd you say? We think we're special.
Yeah.
Like, but the way that you and I are special, and you're like, ultra successful, but people would rather have Jimmy Butler in a deal than you, and you know more.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. Right? People are like, Kevin Love, yes. Anish, no. It's like, wait, no. Anish does this.
Anish who? There's a billion Indian people. Maybe we should.
Right. And so the market, TAM, total aggregate market. And so inside of that, I realized, like, wait a second, Sue could just come up here. He had never played a snap in the NFL. There's more busts than there's superstars. And then it hit me like, oh, that's the move. These people have access. And I realized what was happening to me at that time. I would be in scenarios as the only Black person there, and people were interested in talking to me. I'm like, oh, I have access. They don't know why I'm in this room. And then I really went deep on studying networking. I believe, so in the NFL has a book of subject matter experts and vendors. There's 2 people in the network subject matter expert. It's me and Keith Ferrazzi. The irony of that is Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone, was step 1 of me learning networking. And he's like a social scientist, probably a PhD and all this stuff. I'm just a kid from the projects that's never going back, but it's all the same material. And so it's been very interesting. And so that's what I do for the rookies. So on the 17th, I'll go to the Jaguars, and I'll go to the Dolphins. I'll go to all these teams and explain to rookies that because your ass can come in this building every day, you have a limited amount of, sorry, I get aggressive. You know how I get.
Listen.
Because you can come in this building every day, as much as the paycheck is great, you also have this calling card where you can get information and access to people that people couldn't. It's the same with any organization. BPM Aria has a brand that you get to attach to when you're out networking, and you might be able to, like, people are going to try to get one-on-ones with you. Imagine somebody bumps into a big enough deal that they can bring you in on, like, you know what I mean? Like, All of that is access, and no one knows how to use it. We know how to swipe a credit card. We know how to go in our wallet and pull out a $20 bill. We don't know how to like take these attachments, whether it's because you're a student of Michigan State, or because you're an Indian, or because you're a Cuban, or because you're a part of Quicken Loans or the NFL. All of that has varying degrees of access, and no one teaches anyone how to use it.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference. And so in case some of you guys are not big sports nerds like we are, Dominic Sue has probably made a couple $100 million in his career, or probably close to it.
Yeah, he was about 140 million.
Yeah.
And Warren Buffett's best friend.
Yep, there you go. And that's the point, is it doesn't matter where you're at. Like you're always, and someone like, I mean, I met Dominic through some of the events. I don't know him well enough, but the point is that he's still seeing, hey, I still gotta keep growing. I might be, the top 1% of the 1%, right, of football and the NFL and as an all pro. I still got to work even on my off time, because there's going to be something else to do. So when you're, and for a lot of people, right, and I'll kind of use, I know it's a little different, meaning, they're working full time playing in the NFL. A lot of you guys have full-time jobs, and you're not, where you need to be or where you want to be. Let me rephrase that. And maybe I'm going to use you as the 1%. If you work for corporate America and you love your job, good for you, because I was never that person. I saw the inefficiencies on that end, but maybe it hasn't gotten to where you need to be financially. Or, Kurt, we get this all the time. I know you got, young daughters on that, because a lot of people that are doing this, they might be doing well now, but they want to leave a legacy. Put in the chat if legacy is important for you, and that's why you're in real estate. And so if you're in networking, right? So now we're talking about a high level, these NFL guys, and it's different. And so one of the things I was kind of joke about was, even at some of these events, some of these guys, right? They're getting crushed every Sunday for football besides the practices, but they're afraid to make an offer on a house, right? And I'm like, it almost makes me chuckle, right? And so a lot of newbie investors like, I'm not sure if I should make an offer on a house. It doesn't matter what level you're at. When it's new to you, we are all afraid. And so, Kurt, you'll laugh, my first wholesale deal that I bought, and after I got wiped out and lost everything, and I was like, I don't know if this stuff really works. I put $500 down on a deposit, which I had to borrow from a friend, right? I didn't even have the full 500, and I wholesaled it, right? So I sold it to another buyer. I wasn't planning on closing. I made $2,000. I was pumped. I've made over $100,000 on deals. I was more excited on my $2,000 wholesale. I 4X my money, and it worked. And the amount of confidence I got versus some of the bigger deals I've done in my life, doesn't even bring me the same joy. It probably brings my wife a lot. She's probably now on that end of it.
As a former wrestler, I spend a lot of time with jiu-jitsu now, which is why I'm always hurt. But they say in that the hardest belt to get is white belt. People think black belt, obviously, intuitively. But to start is harder than to progress through. To keep going is the hardest thing to do. And it's because the rational thing to do is to quit.
Yep.
The rational thing is to quit. But that's why there's these barriers to entries to these lifestyles and legacies and stuff that we want. What will keep most people out, the same way I talked about people would be so scared to call Mrs. Smith and ask for her social security number over. I love that. I loved it because it gave me a shot. It gave me an advantage. Because everybody won't try to wholesale, because everybody won't come to the course, everybody won't make time at 11 o'clock to get on this call. It means that those who do and then execute, they have an advantage. And what's crazy is my origin story has been so powerful to me now, which is, when you grow up disadvantaged, there's a time when it becomes an advantage.
Yeah.
Like the kids that we would bring kids in from University of Michigan, which is it's like a University of Miami kids compared to Florida kids. They feel different.
Yep.
And the guys that graduate, Gales that graduate from there, they feel different. But it's okay, well, when the phone rings, none of that's going to matter.
Yeah.
You're going to ask for the business, you're going to run the play, you're going to do these processes and execute, or you won't. And that was this is an advantage. So a kid who's had his lights off before, like me, my level of what was difficult is different than the person that's like, oh my God, this is a stranger. Now, many of us will still feel that way because people come off different platforms. It's all about when you're uncomfortable, can you muster up the strength to try again? Can you get to that 100th try? You're 2 zeros into anything. I don't care what it is. I ran for the Board of Education and I didn't want to buy it. I literally could have just paid enough money that I was going to get elected. I went
Yep.
and knocked every door. I knocked all the doors. And literally the first one I went up to, it was like 2003. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, no, just tap. Hurry up, don't
Yeah.
think about it, just tap. And I had that conversation. And so what am I thinking? I'm thinking the same stuff you're talking about. I don't know what I'm going to say when this guy or gal opens the door, right? I'm in a neighborhood and I'm like me, and these people don't look like me, right? And I'm running for a Board of Education and I've never been a teacher or any of these things before. What the hell am I even going to say? Well, one thing that's great is I don't pontificate to myself. I don't make deals with myself. I've just had enough experiences. It's like, all right, well, knock on 100 doors, then start planning. People want to plan and delay knocking on the doors. I don't want to do that. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. And it, you know, it worked. I ended up getting 20 some
Yeah.
thousand votes, got on, and everyone was, then it went the other way. People were like, well, of course it worked. You work with NFL players, you do all this. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I didn't tell one person about that.
Yeah.
I knocked on the doors. I did it. And people try to discredit you once you've done it. Like it was easier
Yeah.
for you. Oh, it was easy for Anish because he started 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is like you know, sometimes I hate to say it, and I'm going to add to that, the people that discredit you are the people you know that are close to you
Oh, for
sometimes,
sure.
or family. So when we grew up in Irvington, New Jersey. So it's like, I'm first generation. So it was the projects, and we got robbed and all that other good stuff. And, like what you do in little tougher neighborhoods, and being Indian. So my parents were hoping I'd become a doctor, as as every Indian parent's dreams is, be a doctor. When I was about 10 years old, I passed out when they took blood. So mom's like, oh, great, he's not gonna
It's
be
not going to happen for this kid.
and you'll laugh. The other funny part, while we're living in the projects, we only had one car. So anywhere we went, we always had to take a bus. And I always equated that to like, hey, we're out doing something. So for the first few years, which my mom was very nervous, hey, what do you want to be, a doctor? I want to be a bus driver. And she's like, you want to be a bus driver? And I'm like, no, don't you want to be a doctor? And the point was, I always put it together as getting out of the house and exploring the world on that end of it. And luckily, a very supportive family. And I wound up doing well in 2003, 5, all that other good stuff. Read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I realized my dad was poor dad. I was on a path of being poor dad, and started really doing well. And then the market crashed in 2008. And so I went from millions to February 10, 2010, I filed bankruptcy. So I literally had a bunch to losing everything. Meaning the funny part was I had the single guy starter kit on South Beach at the Range Rover. It was expensive to run me. And it was a very humbling experience. So for people that, are older, when I'm going to say older, people like my age and that are 50s, and you've gone through a breakdown where you lost everything, and it's hard, right? And we're talking about trying, and for part of me was, hey, I didn't want to go back to corporate America. I'm also a competitor. So I always thought, hey, if that idiot could do it over there, this idiot could do it over here. I'm not saying that's going to be, but I had a drive on that portion. So what do you tell people? We're talking about networking, and I hear this all the time, like, oh, Anish or Kurt, it's easy for you. That's just because you're so outgoing, or all that, that kind of stuff. If I'm really, I don't know, quiet, or in their mind, they think they're quiet, what would be some of the beginning steps?
So it goes back to everything you're saying, everything we're talking about is about assigning meaning to stuff.
Yep.
People sometimes will just float through life and they don't assign meaning to stuff. A best practice I would love everyone on here to do, and I don't know you and I'll never know if you do this, but the next time you go to an event, make a goal like, I'm going to meet 5 people. Whatever it is, just write something down and assign meaning to it. And then under this is, I teach networking, obviously, like for a living, basically in one of my lives. I tell people all the time, before you go to the event, physically write down the words, these people are here to meet me. It's weird. People go to networking events and they clam up. That should be the one place we're free. Like, this person is here to meet me. Like, and it goes back to, again, and you might pick up on this theme. I'm writing a book on all the bad advice there is, like, don't try. We also get told, don't talk to strangers. And that's the worst advice. And then we never teach our kids the opposite of that. So this is compounded in our minds. You're at a networking event. These are strangers. Everyone you know is already helping you, and they're probably not helping you much, because to your point, it's the people you know that are hating on you. You need more strangers. You need people who don't know what you know, right? The other thing is I just talked about this on the podcast. To the person, the guy or gal you're talking about that feels introverted or not special, you really gotta, and write this down. You have to look at this stuff. That's the one thing that I wish I was even more successful, because I would be standing on a soapbox talking about some of this stuff. And I know people do, but again, I think people need to hear it from the you and me and the people that have had success and then lost it or had nope. Like, I know I'm not supposed to live on a golf course right now. I know that, you talk about like legacy and bus driver. One day, my daughter, my oldest daughter, I have a daughter who's 27 and I have the twin 4-year-olds. Every quarter century I have kids. So 2032 is going to be wild. But when my oldest daughter was 8 years old, we were driving in downtown Detroit right before the crash.
Right.
I too lost a vehicle, a brand new Expedition, got repoed, making $40,000 a month and then $400 a month. She asked me, why don't these people, like, what are these people standing here for? And I'm like, they're on the bus. And she says, why don't they buy a car? And I realized it had transcended. She didn't understand poverty in the way that I did. Like, I understood people had food stamps. I understood sometimes the lights are off. She didn't even know that everybody in the world didn't have enough money to buy a car. That's a legacy play. So going into the room and you feel like you're unique, you're not special, you are unique. You're having a 1 in 7.8 billion experience right now. Right? 100 billion people have lived on the planet and you're one of them. There's no such thing as an uninteresting person. But what happens is we go in the room with interesting people and we're so focused on trying to be interesting ourselves. We should go back to what you talked about, which is asking questions. Meet Anish and ask him, what was the moment where you knew that this system was going to work? And he'll tell you a story. You probably even end up in this story of the vulnerability of the breakdown and the crash. And we can see us reflected in Anish's story. We can ask Alexa about how she met him and how this thing's coming together and what she knows. If you ask the right questions, even if you feel like you're not special or interesting, you will see yourselves in the stories of other people who have had success, and that will give you the confidence to ask more things. The second thing is this. You want to be around people who make you feel better about you. What sometimes happens in networking is we go around people and we're like, wow, that person, I talked to them for 20 minutes and I feel better about them. Like Anish told me all this stuff about him and I feel better about him. Like people need to be intentional networking with people who make them feel better about themselves. You are unique, you are special. Ask questions. If you don't know what to say, ask questions. Let people tell you their hero story and don't be looking at it to put them on a pedestal. Look at that hero story and listen for the parts of that story that reflect what you've been through. And then you just got to be intentional about how do you communicate that. But it all starts with going in the room and remembering people are there to meet you. All right. Remembering that all of us are unique and having a special experience. You don't need to be in the NFL. You don't need to host courses and webinars. You're already special, right? As much as we just joked and said you're not special, you're unique. You're 1 in 7.8 billion right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're special sometimes. My wife says when I don't listen to her, I'm special sometimes.
But we do tell our kids when they leave here, just remember, you're not special outside of here. Like, we're going to treat you better in here than the world's going to treat you out there.
Absolutely. And so how many networking events would you like, people that work full time and sometimes it's hard, or what would you suggest on like, how many events they go to, or should it be always in their field? Because what I've done is, I go to a lot of events that are not real estate actually, just because it's something different and I get to meet new people. And I like learning from them actually. So when I got to meet you, obviously we're hanging out afterwards, and I was like, man, this is something. I think I'm a pretty good networker. And then I watched what you taught, and I was like, man, I'm really dropping the ball on a lot of stuff. So speaking about that, what would your suggestion be?
So the interesting thing is, I'm always looking for the competitive advantage. You and me are both competitors. We've acknowledged that. But because I'm a poor loser and a worse winner, like I'm looking to make sure I win as much as possible. Yeah. If I were doing what you all did, I would spend almost all my time around people who don't know about it. I would, and it's interesting. Like to your point, I want to be where there's an advantage. When I want to be, what we tend to do is, again, bad advice that we've been given, find like-minded people. Well, no, you want like-behaviored people, but that like-minded people is a formula for failing. Like if you want just the DNA to speak for itself and there's a hierarchy and you were born and you were going to be number 7 and someone's born and going to be number 1, spending time around them is unfortunate for you. You're stuck in a cycle of being number 7. Get out of that. Find other people who want to win, who also want to contribute, who also think legacy, who also are looking for ways to escape their 9 to 5. Be around them. and show them something they don't know. Again,
Mhm.
talk to them about your story and how their stories match up. And it's cool that you're in this. Like you're you're a wholesaler. Okay, I got to spend some time around wholesalers because I need to know more. I'm always, again, we got to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So there'll be changes in how you can be successful. But spending time in these other sandboxes where people don't know what you know and aren't looking on what you're doing, it's easier oftentimes to learn more from teaching people. We know that. Well, who are you going to teach if you're the brand new person in wholesale?
Yeah.
But you know enough just from coming to a couple of these courses. You go teach somebody who's in medical sales,
Yeah.
and again, they'll find their reflections in the story that you tell them that'll be useful. And so I'm big on that. In terms of going to physical events, that's different for everybody based on budget and all kinds of stuff. I still to this day will go to, if there's people I have to meet, right? Like John Gordon and Caleb have a relationship and I don't. So if I saw him in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I'll drive the hour to go to that thing because I have the access now. Because when I shake his hand with 100 other people, I'm going to say, hey, Caleb had introduced us a while ago and it just got lost in the frail. And I got my new connection point with John Gordon, which I cannot get any other way online.
Yeah.
But if it's not something I'm intentionally going after a person, I really believe that the Facebook groups on, or the Reddit groups, or whatever the groups are on anything is where I would spend time and try to build a community. And you do that not by trying to show people what you know, but asking questions about what you don't know. Hey, I'm new into I'm new into real estate and investing. What are the first 4 tips someone should give me? Right. And I'm asking that maybe in a group that's not about real estate investing, but there's someone in there that has some know-how and they might tell me some stuff. And relationships start from them adding value to you, not the other way around. And that's really hard for people to, again, assign meaning to.
Yeah. So Kurt, I'm going to be honest about something, because I feel like we're friends now. So on that portion, so I can't tell you how many times I've gone to networking events and I felt very comfortable with the 2 people. Like, let's say there's 300 people at this networking event, but I saw you and Caleb, or, I saw you and Alexa.
Mhm.
I would fully gravitate just to hang out with you and Alexa the whole time. And so I really wasn't there networking, like, right on that portion. But I told myself I went to this networking event and I never went in there with the intention like, hey, I need to meet at least 5 people or 4 people.
There it is.
On that portion. So go ahead and put in the chat. Don't make me feel like the only person that's ever done this. And feel if you've ever done that on that and been at events. So go ahead, Kurt. I'll let you.
There's an opportunity to practice this. So again, this sounds I know it sounds crazy, but just do it. It's not crazy after 20 times. Anytime, for me, I just picked veterans. Anytime a veteran's at like a fast food place or something, I'll ask them to buy lunch and ask them to sit with me. Right? I don't want to.
Were you asking them to buy you lunch?
Pardon?
You asking them to buy you lunch?
I'll buy their lunch and ask them to sit with me.
No, I'm messing with
you. In fact, I see
I'm messing with you.
There will be a story in there you'll see. Strangely, this guy actually went to war with my uncle while it's narrated. But for me, it's just about how do I get a rep? That's the least comfortable thing. And for me, I don't want to eat with anybody. I don't want to small talk. It seems like I got this gregarious personality, but like many people like this, it's really quite the opposite in that I'm going to get off this call in 29 minutes and have a bunch of stuff to catch up on. And my wife is going to want to come down and send me a Facebook reel or Instagram reel, all of that. And my daughters are going to come home and all of that stuff is going to make it so where it's easy for me to look down and not chat. But I really am practicing networking always. And so the reason I was saying that, what were we just talking about? I lost my train of thought on it because I just realized like,
well the idea was that, when you go to an event and you hang out with people,
they're not intentional about it, but you don't even have to go to my point of telling that story. You don't have to go to a networking event to get better at networking. The person who rings you up at your dry cleaner, ask them a little bit about anything. That skill, this is why it's a superpower. It just can be redirected in all these ways. But again, we assign meaning like, oh, this is just a transactional relationship. Why would I ask this person anything about their life? This is why it works so well with the guys. You saw the results. How many times was my phone ringing? Just to give the audience some
give them what you made them do. This is like one of the most.
I tell them we're going to learn about networking. I teach them just 3 basic things, and then I say, all right, now we're all going to leave the room. You have to go up and down the beach because we do it at either the Hilton or the W on Fort Lauderdale Beach. You have to go up and down these restaurants, ask people what they do for a living, and anyone who has a C-level position, I want you to try to get them to call my cell phone and give me a piece of business advice. So this is the ultimate, this is not even a cold call. This is a cold interrupt your lunch. This is a cold interrupt your check-in at a hotel. This is a cold interrupt you standing for your Uber. And these guys do wildly well at it. My phone rings off the hook. A lot of times I'm saving people's contacts because, again, I'm Mr. Access. One of the things that I've been able to do really well in my life is I'm the guy you call when it's like, who is the REI guy? And I'm like, oh, Anish, right? Who is our buddy Ben? Like, who's the luxury realtor? Ben Moss. And
Yeah.
it makes people feel better about me, but all it is I'm capturing information and I'm really intentional. I write everything down in my phone. You heard me talk to the guys about that. I write everything, I code everything in my phone, right? In my phone, I already took a screenshot. It sounds creepy, but I'm going to crop this picture and I have Alexa's email in here. It'll go in there because I might bump into her in an airport, right?
Yep.
All of what I do is make people feel good about what they do. That's what I really learned that I've been able to do. And remembering people is one of the easiest ways to do that. But also, every now and then we had a lady call and she's like, she works for the United Nations from this group exercise that the players did. How else am I going to, I'm never going to meet this lady.
Yeah.
I save her thing and then I send her a text later. Hey, this is Kurt Richardson. You don't know me, but the players that met up with you called earlier, and I'll send her a group picture of the pack, right? And then
That's
she's like, oh,
awesome.
that's interesting. What do you think she does 9 times out of 10, the hers that when I send that text? What do you think they do?
Yeah, they're gonna be showing it. They're like, wow.
They're going to show other people that, so that's good
Yep.
for pack. But they always ask me what the event was.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
What was that?
Yeah.
Now the ball has been lobbied into my
Yep.
court, so I can tell them something. You know, here's my email, by the way. I would love to follow up with you. And you mentioned that you gave me the best piece of advice, Anish, of all the hundreds of calls I got. Now, there's some showmanship in this because I might tell everyone that. Just full
Yeah.
disclosure. I might
Yeah.
tell every person they gave me the best piece of advice. And I'm probably more comfortable coming from the sales world doing that than other people. And so I'm sorry if that sounds like it lacks integrity, but it's
No,
just part of my
no.
spiel.
No, absolutely. I would do the same.
Yeah, we're wired.
No,
the same.
I have no problem with that because I think that's important because it's at that moment, right?
Yeah, and I want
you
them
know,
to feel good that they contributed.
yeah,
Again,
absolutely.
I want most people won't assign the right meaning to what they do. So if I can help assign meaning, I want to do that.
Yeah. So I'm going to follow with that. I never really thought of that after you. So you did the good job, right? You met 5 people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the follow-up. Like hopefully,
Well, that follow-up, I changed the word and you know that.
yeah,
I don't think any networking happens when you meet people or at a networking event. This is the big misnomer in networking. Going to a meeting, meeting somebody, getting a business card, none of that was networking. Networking is what happens the second you have their contact information. So networking for me includes this. I'll send you this because our buddy Craig Shaw, the reason he and I connected was Master P. We both grew up in the 90s. You know, he grew up in New York and very similar story to all 3 of us,
Yeah.
right? So Craig, by the way, just for context, is like one of the top real estate coaches in the realtor world for
Yeah.
Compass. Hugely successful business. Again, how am I going to meet him any other way than I know Ben and Caleb? It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Because I'm not one of the top Compass realtors in the world. And that's who he works with. He doesn't work with
Yeah.
strangers like me, but I got to meet him. But the networking is then every day for like 2 months, we're sending each other like 90s era obscure hip hop song. I know that doesn't sound like networking if you were at
It
Harvard.
does.
That's how he and I connect.
Yeah.
I know so much about him because of what he was listening to in 10th and 11th grade. Right. And so that's networking. Following up on LinkedIn, I just was able to speak at this conference that ESPN put on at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. One of the bigger events I've been involved with. It's put on by a bunch of NFL teams. It's called the Black Sports Symposium. I probably got connected with 140 people that are in various different levels of Black sports professionals, including from being in teams all the way down to students trying to get in the business. I have been since then, every day I do 5. I use ChatGPT. I type the scenario in ChatGPT and send them a really long message. Why? Because I don't want them to reply, great meeting you too. I want them to feel really good. And that's networking. That connection is having someone's contact information isn't connecting. That can mean. And then I'll usually ask a question or two, like, why? I'm just curious. I was at the ESPN thing speaking, and I'm also always looking to do X, Y, and Z. What brought you there? Then they'll tell me that. And with that information, as you know, I'm big on, if you tell people what you want to do and why you want to do it to enough people, they can help you. People think they need mentors. I know you're big in the mentor word, so I'm probably mincing words on this, but what they really need is sponsorship. They need people in rooms with deal makers, movers, shakers, opportunity that are like, wait a second, don't do anything. You want to wholesale a house, you have to call in this. don't do anything. You want to sell this luxury Sunny Isles condo? Call Ben.
Oh, man.
Like
Yeah.
we need people in rooms bringing our names up.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. And to give you an idea, like, you know, obviously what Caleb and what Pac, and you know, it's a small group of players and experts. So, you know, so I am actually doing something with Shirag actually because of the event. Chris, I'm pushing him to do something, and I've had actually Chris and Ben be actually on one of these webinars too. So speaking about pushing different things. So one of the cool things, and guys, put this in the chat. So I've been really pushing because I'm beyond impressed by what Kurt's been up to and, you know, his journey. How many of you guys would be interested in if Kurt had a networking class that you paid for that actually taught you how to network and turn it into dollars? Go ahead and put in chat. Give me yeah, Kurt, if you think that would be something that you'd be interested in doing, and this would change your business on that portion. Because I think it's always important as you're building, you know, your business, right? I could teach you real estate. I could teach you how to analyze houses. I could sure hell not teach you how to network like Kurt does. I mean, when I'm telling you, my life has been built on networking, and then I figured out how to find the deals, if that makes sense. Me, you know, like I've met hedge funds that have bought, you know, over the years, hundreds of homes, and it was just at a quick networking event. And again, it's also what he's talking about. It wasn't just me getting their phone number and their business card. It was actually following up. And that's how Kurt and I met, right? We had a great exchange, and we exchanged. And so what I did, right? Like, this is going to be full transparency. And this is what I'm going to tell you, this is not what to do. And this is what I mean. So I meet Kurt, I tell him how impressive he is, and wow, what an asset you would be to our group. Just doing a quick interview process, and I'll get back to you in the next couple of days. It was a full week. And just so you guys know, you can't see it here, but I have his business card. It's the one that's sitting on my desk all the time. And I was like, damn, I did not call him. And then I'm going to tell you what actually also happened was kind of funny. Was I think I said it was be a couple of days, and that was a full week. So now I was at the point of like my mental end of it was being embarrassed. Like I told him I was going to do this and I didn't do it. And then I said, well, no, this guy's got all that, like leave your ego on the side on that portion. And hopefully I did say, I was like, hey, my bad. I didn't get back to you right away, but let's do this on that portion. So I'm going to give myself A to F. I'm going to give myself a C- of the follow-up initially. Right. And then
but there's two really good nuggets in there that I can't let you pass over. One is, so many of us, especially as men, will make the bad decision because of ego. Oh, I said I was going to do it in a week. I didn't. So I'll just never do it. And then to have the humility to do that. And the other thing is most people don't, again, assign meaning. Most people don't have an expectation of perfection for other people. You know, so if you mess up, it's okay. They probably didn't assume that you were walking on water. If you mess up, just call and say I messed up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I mean, listen, I do that at home all the time. I just got to get in my business life. I have no problem. Sorry, babe. My bad. On that ocean, but that's what I want to tell everyone is that, you know, I'm not perfect. Things happen, life happens. But if you do meet someone that has value, it's your job. And what I liked what you were talking about, like a lot of times, you know, I think about like, hey, I'm actually doing Kurt a favor by introducing myself. So when you're at these networking events, or when you meet people, wherever you are in your life, it doesn't have to be networking events. You're doing them a favor of meeting them and letting them know what you do. And I'm going to give you the basic ends of like, I'm going to hope that you're doing things that are ethical, right? Don't make me say that. You're doing things unethical. All right, that's something different. But in general, you're actually doing them a favor. The world's missing out not knowing you because, you know, you're either a great husband, a great dad, great mom, a sister on that portion. And that's, you know, I feel like a lot of times that for me personally, the happiest I'm always at is when there's community, when I feel part of any kind of community, whether it's ethical, it's an Indian community, it's real estate investors, it's sports. The power of community really, I feel like, makes an impact in the world.
Yeah, well, there's, as you would know, we had one of the most powerful people from Menlo Park in the room that day. And it's kind of many threads in this. One, I started email chain. He gave me a great answer, which does happen sometimes with busy people. He replied and said, call or email me in 2 weeks and I'll have an idea by then. I set a calendar appointment, right, or email in 2 weeks, and he didn't reply. And so I was just thinking last night, like, why am I scared to reply to him? Because he's a important person. He's the guy that helped fund one of the biggest businesses, the big business that was there.
Yeah.
My Persian brother. But any event, what I also think about that is there's a reason there's not a second Menlo Park. That tech community and angel investor community, the reason it's all there is for community.
Yeah.
Not only is there intellectual property bouncing around that little, I mean, Menlo Park is I don't know if people have been out to Cali. It's not a big place. But when
Right.
you think about like most of the things that are changing or going to change the world are going to come from there, even if they originated in Brooklyn, your ass getting on a plane and going out there to get this thing off the ground. It's because the know-how, the community, the threads, all of those are there. We can create little mini thread. Working with Dan and I don't mean to make anyone uncomfortable by this, it's just a real thing. I had never been around the Jewish community growing up where I was. Being around Dan and the way him and his core group of friends that he grew up with in the 70s in South Mill, Michigan,
Yeah.
and their children, the way they build a fence around them in terms of responsibility and duty to grow and share. And it's weird that it creates negativity in the world because it's the right thing. Like, I'm pro nepotism. I want my girls to have it better. If I can walk in any door and make it easier on them, I'm going to do that. And then the next level further is anyone that meets me, I'm going to help them more than the stranger resume I get. Like, building community, I'm the same way as you. When
Yeah.
I leave the pack, or when I leave, like, even when I'm on the school board and the kids come in that, like, I see the parents of people I grew up with and their kids are like doing robotics or something. I never feel better than when I feel like, oh, we're a part of that. My sister passed away in 2016. The hardest part, aside from the grief of that, is I still get the urge sometimes when something cool happens to call her.
Right.
Because that chapter of the book is like the most important in the world to me. And for years, I could just keep writing this chapter. Like, my sister, we talked about some people will hate on us when we have success. If I sent my sister a picture of me on like a private plane, like,
Yeah.
she lit her up, and her life didn't go the way mine did.
Yeah.
And she would tell me, share, like, she was like, like, don't feel sorry for me, like, inspire me. And like, that has made all the impact in the life of the world on me for life. Because of what you're saying, you're doing people a favor, inspiring them, meeting, interacting with them. People need that. You don't know how people's days are going. And,
Yeah.
and then one piece I want to touch on, just because we touched on the football thing, and I didn't want to be lost on, you talking about legacy, institutionalizing the vision. Yours is institutionalized. So it didn't matter if it was going to be mortgages or this, you were going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You had a vision for how your life was going to be. And so what's been attractive to me about being around you is that by many people's metrics, they'd be like, Kurt, you live that. But it's like, wait a second, no, you changed my institutional vision of how I could do and be more. I talked to you off the thing about things we could chat about. Lamar Jackson, who I didn't know was going to get papered up in this process. That's one of the players I work with. When I met him, we talked about oil paintings. Like, his vision is that 200 years after he's dead, there's an oil painting hanging somewhere of what he did. And the average person who's not in sports, or any of you that follow sports but don't know much about the Ravens, that's what this last 2 months has been all about. And it's gone into, even when he was a boy in Deerfield, and they said, no, you could be a running back. No, they had a vision since he was 9 years old that he was going to be an NFL quarterback. He gets to Louisville the first day because he's not going to be the starting quarterback. He knows this. Most people don't know this story. He calls home and he's like, Mom, they had me returning punts. Miss Felicia goes to Louisville. From Broward County, goes up to Louisville and was like, I don't know any other quarterbacks returning punts. We're not doing that shit. They had a vision that they wouldn't get off from. So when they're sitting in the green room and he doesn't get drafted where they told him, none of that changes. I know he looks sad in that picture, but what happened 2 days ago with him becoming the highest paid player in NFL history, they've been thinking about that since 96.
Wow.
It was institutionalized. And that's what many people don't. I'm institutionalized as a networker. I don't go into any place and not be a networker. And that's what I wish for people on this. You took the time to do this course. Like, whatever your vision is or for why you're involved with BPM, like, institutionalize that. Be that everywhere. Lamar is a quarterback everywhere he goes. And that's why I love this kind of thing tying up and paying off. Like, my Instagram the other day was, it's only crazy if it doesn't work, because he held out. He doesn't have an agent. He bucked the system in every way. they've cut him the biggest check that's ever been cut.
Yeah, it's actually amazing. And I'm gonna add, like, you don't need to be a Lamar Jackson. You don't need to be a Kurt Richardson. You definitely don't want to be me, to an extent, meaning you're the hero of your own story. Every one of us is been through the trials and tribulations. And the idea is you have to step out of your comfort zone. That's when great things happen in whatever you choose in, right? So again, we're not even just talking about real estate investing, whatever your passion is, right? It could be for charities, communities, it could be your kids, a legacy, or it could be all of it on that portion. And we're almost out of time. So I'm going to ask the group, and I'm without Kurt even knowing this, how many of you guys would be interested if I did a Saturday workshop for 4 or 5 hours? And, of course, there's going to be a fee for the workshop. There'll always be a member pricing and a non-member pricing. And it was all about networking. And, and whatever Kurt wants to teach, actually, like, because, I'd be open to anything as we keep going through this, because this is about mindset, right? I mean, listen, you might know how to analyze properties, you might know how to write contracts, all that kind of stuff. But if you do not know how to talk to people, you're not going to get stuff done in general. So I see a bunch of people do this. I got to, let's do it. I'll be there. Give me, Kurt, on this portion. So he doesn't know this. I'm always about putting people on the spot. So now, and the best part is this is recorded. So I could always, if Kurt says yes, now I could say, hey, Kurt, remember?
2 feet in, man. I'm rolling with,
Okay, so
my guy,
yeah.
There's a guy down there in Florida. His name is Ed Downs. He's a family friend. He's runs a gym, and he had LeBron and all those guys when the big three were down there. And his saying is what ended up on LeBron's hats for all those years: roll with the winners. Like when they were making fun of them for joining a super team, they rolled out this hat, RWTW, roll with the winners. I'm rolling with the winners. So wherever you need me, I'm there.
Okay, and we'll probably do it via Zoom. And the only reason I'm saying via Zoom is we have so many people that are actually viewing us from all over the country. So I was here, like, people drive me nuts. Hey, Nish, it'd be great if you do it via Zoom. It'd be great if you do it in person. The only challenge that we ever have is in person. The venues are a little bit expensive, so my price has to go up if it's in person. But I'm not saying no yet. I'll work it out with Kurt on that portion. We'll have something obviously for members. Maybe it'll be very interactive. The one thing I know about Kurt, he is one interactive person. The Zoom events, thank you, Alexa, for talking about it. It's cameras on. So just like our boot camp, our quick start, no one knows any difference. We get to see your faces. I could put you in rooms. So there's always challenges that we could always give. Go ahead, Kurt, you got anything that you think?
Well, as you're saying, I'm like, we could do something like that and do rooms, and we'll pop into rooms. I'll go through their LinkedIn with them, and we'll make sure out to my LinkedIn and your LinkedIn. And somebody, I'm doing a thing with the NCAA that's literally all on, like, here's the kids that are like athletes with a little bit of a platform. There was like a vetting process. You want to work at Rock Nation, you want to work at William Morris, you want to work at Warner Brothers. All right, let's reverse engineer it. And so
actually, what?
In any way.
I totally did a disservice because I didn't let you like it comes in because I already know what you do. Do you want to talk about who you're like after obviously leaving Quick, and it's like what you're doing in general besides PAC and Rock Nation and all the different things that you've been part of? Yeah, I mean, you're super humble, so like I'd rather put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. I started a company called Encore Athletics that was really about like vetting deal flow. So Caleb and them will actually, we'll be a better mechanism for that. But the people that I work with, I started out really just trying to help people build their foundations, because like, it's weird, and no knock on any business. I'm not knocking anything, but like people, like, you don't need to go to like LegalZoom to start a company. Like, and you don't need to have $5,000 as an attorney. Like we were having players get ripped off to get their EINs from the IRS. Like companies charging them $750. You can do that in 1 minute for free. It's a free service. Like, and so really what I was trying to get in the way of is like really doing that. I started dabbling in agent selection. NIL kind of changed that. And so I work with a lot of athletic departments, Michigan State, Florida State, Oklahoma State, University of Michigan, on like just teaching the guys, like, 10 years ago, we couldn't get these kids to pay their parking tickets. And now, I got a player who got $1 million in hand. A lot of these NIL deals are fake, especially down where you guys are. The U
Yeah.
Miami ones don't always come to fruition, but he got what I call IMP. He got $1 million in his pocket, in my pocket money. Well, what the hell do you do with that when you're 21 and it's accelerated wealth now? The odds of what's going to happen to him are the same as Slaughter. I also work for a franchisor that owns Two Men in a Truck and Dunkin' Donuts and all that. So Rourke Capital owns Service Master and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then my day-to-day, my 9 to 5, I have one like you all, is I report to that executive team and I lead a bunch of cross-functional teams that work with big companies like Coca-Cola. We have Coca-Cola, Boeing, Amazon. We have big national accounts with those people, which, by the way, imagine how I'm teaching these sales leaders to teach their sales teams, or how I teach my salespeople to get it. You know what it is? It's this. It's
Yeah.
networking. What's funny about that is LinkedIn has changed all the way we were doing it 5 years ago has been all kind of cross stitch, and you can't do it that anyway. So we had to figure out a new way, learn, unlearn, relearn. Everything I'm telling you, just it's so multifaceted. And then I have, when my sister passed away, we started a foundation in her name called Kendra Claus, which does Christmas for moms that are going through a severe illness like cancer or really anything. But again, that whole thing blew up like I couldn't believe because of my network. Again, going back to Muskegon 2001, Clark Bentley tells me people are helping you, but if this doesn't pan out, they'll just as easily stop helping you. The best thing that's happened in my life, aside from my children and wife, is that I've been able to rebound from all those mistakes and people still want to help me, including you. Like, I just been really fortunate that way. Luckiest guy that's ever lived. Find myself in lucky situations all the time. And so we spend a lot of time now on that foundation. It's to the point where we can scale. We did, I don't know, $30,000 in Christmas presents last year for moms that were
awesome.
really sick. You know,
Well, I'm gonna correct you on one thing. It's not you're creating that good luck and fortune, meaning it's not by accident. In general, because I've seen the people you've been around and, at the event, everyone's always attracted or always want to be around on you because you're doing some pretty awesome things and really transforming a lot of people. What we're gonna, because we're actually almost out of time. We have the last couple of minutes on this stuff. So a couple of things. Number one is what would your final outlay or your final thing that you want to say to our group, if you had one quick little bit of advice? I know you gave us a lot of great nuggets.
Just accept that there's a price to pay. Most people don't want to do that. Like, I know there's people that are dabbling. There's people on this call dabbling. I've been a dabbler up until, like I told you, I've been very honest with you. I've had a lot of people want to help me. I've dabbled, and the reason I was dabbling was because I understood there's a price to pay. And so I just wish more people knew that. When Saquon was a rookie, he reached out to all the NFL legends at running back, got all their workouts. Like, nobody at his caliber. He's a top draft pick. He's for the New York Giants, and you might be a Giants fan. You switched over to the Fins fan or no?
I'm both. Yeah, I've been down here long enough. So
in any event, I was so blown away by just how understood. But his goal was different. He didn't want to be part of the game. He wanted to be he wanted his jersey in the rafters. And when you want that, it's easy to network, because the people that can help you do that kind of stuff, you don't know them right now. And that's in anything you do. You could work at the bank, you could work at the dry cleaner. If you want to be great at something really great, you probably don't know the best people yet, but they're out there. And again, a lot of times when people have had success 10, 12, 20 years ago, they can't wait to tell somebody about it right now.
Yeah.
And so there's a price to pay, and this is the best time ever to be able to pay that price.
Yeah, I'm going to add, I know you've said that even in your presentation. I've seen one shake hand or one person could change your life.
100%.
And that's,
I cannot believe. It's weird. I can believe it. So it's not blown away. I just know other people can't believe that this much could happen from meeting a stranger. Because if they did, there'd be a line if you wouldn't be able to go to the gas station. If more people believe that a stranger could change their life, and then you got to do your part. That was in 2003. That's a long time ago, but that you could that there's the person that most of us are looking for really exists. The product, the training, it already probably exists. Like the internet already exists. The training already exists. People already buy houses. People already sell houses. People already hold. So much has been figured out already. What a blessing. What a great time to be alive.
Absolutely. So, Kurt, I want to thank you so much for everything. So I'm going to hold you to this, because I think we're going to have to do a Saturday workshop at least So one of the things is that Kurt's working on, we kind of talked about it beforehand. He's actually going to have his own coaching program of actually teaching people how to network.
Yep.
And he's in the midst of building it out right now, because I don't know anyone in our space that does this professionally, that really understands it and that really lives it. So, you know, Kurt was he was a little unsure if he was going to do that. And I told him that we all need it. You're actually doing us a favor by creating a course like this for, you know, someone like I'll be the first one that pays to take your course. So he trusts me on that portion. Alexa, any last announcements or anything that we got?
I just want to say thank you so much, Kurt. This was everything I needed this week and more, just to like start out May on the right foot, and just so grateful, and just thank you for everything you've done like thus far. And I just know you're going to do so much more. And we really would appreciate if you came back to that workshop.
You know what's gonna be funny is that I love that this thing is recorded. So probably within 3 years, when you know, Kurt's got a stadium full, maybe Tony Robbins opens up for him, and
Oh my gosh.
and Kurt's the main event. I'll have this little recording and say, remember when Kurt used to talk to us little people? No, of course, he's the master networking guy. He'll never forget about us.
No, I'm rolling with the winners. I'm rolling with you. And it's very interesting. You may not know Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, we live in the same neighborhood until his wife got sick. But people would always ask me, like, why is this not happening for you? And the truth is I didn't feel called to do it until you and I chatted. Like, you know, I've opened for him and I've done some stuff with Tony's crew. But what you've done for me is more than I did on this call for anybody, or what I could do. Because if I deliver, you did your part. I tell you that much. If I deliver, it'll be in a huge part to you. Just being candid with a stranger and saying, hey, you're not doing enough. And people need that, man.
Yeah. So when Kurt really makes it big, not if, when, he knows I'm all about, Alexa will tell you, I'm a big I told you so on that end of it. I might have a I told you so Kurt t-shirt on that end of it. I might sell my own little, 1,000 t-shirts that say I told you so.
I love it.
Now you guys understand, as the viewers and everyone that's on today, is, when I met Kurt, I said, I got to have him on. And now you understand what a powerful person he is, and the impact he's making to so many people too. So thanks, my friend. Thanks for having us on.
Everyone.
Appreciate you all.
Webinar replay will be posted to our YouTube channel. Link is in the chat. I also linked Kurt's website in there, but I will send each and every one of you a thank you email right when we tune out of this webinar. So look out for my email coming from me, Alexa, like the Amazon thing, at bpmria.com. So look out for that. And we will see you guys tomorrow night for the monthly meeting. Yay!
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Kurt. Have a great
Appreciate
day.
you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.